The national media says that BYU or any Big 12 team would get boat raced by an SEC contender. Can I just prove to you why that is wildly and terribly wrong? This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Big 12 doesn't stand a chance against the SEC. You've heard that one before, right? Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. We will start with a clip from J.D. Pickell of On3 saying that BYU would get boat raced by any SEC contender. I can prove it entirely wrong, easily. We'll also talk about how he believes Indiana is in a league separate of BYU, which is wild. We'll also go to Beat the Books, the best bets for this weekend to make you money, brought to you by FanDuel. If you hit subscribe, I get to keep my job. Also, congratulations to Lila Toll, who signed her letter of intent yesterday to play softball at Baylor University. That's pretty darn cool. J.D. Pickell on 3. When I first got my start in sports media, him and I shared a desk together. He is one of my favorite personalities in the country. He knows typically what he's talking about. He looks fantastic, and he's a great friend of mine. But he got it very, very wrong. This video, courtesy of On3, here's what he said.
Yo, I would take any SEC team that is ranked behind BYU, and I would take them with a touchdown and probably take them to cover that spread. Like, BYU, I think on a neutral site with South Carolina, gets ragdolled. BYU versus A&M, got nobody blocking Shamar Stewart. BYU and Ole Miss, did we see what Ole Miss did to Georgia? And y'all, Georgia did not look great. Is anybody from BYU's roster able to line up in the 2 deep for Georgia? I don't think so. And that, I'm dunking on BYU a little bit here, but that's just how I feel. The resume, I get it. If we want to factor them into these rankings, cool. I know it'll shake itself out when we get onto the field, but I feel very strongly about this. BYU, if we're going off the resume, have them at 6, awesome. Give them the 3rd seed, cool. You win the Big 12, more power to you. But BYU, I'm just saying this right now. When BYU sees a team from the SEC or a team from the Big 10, it will be ugly.
Wrong. In the same way that when TCU in the 2022 college football playoff was going to see a team from the Big 10, it would be ugly. They ended up beating Michigan, Connor Stallions and Michigan. BYU, you don't have to ask me in my opinion as the Locked On Big 12 host. Let me give you the numbers. Per College Football Insiders, they don't break down, based on your conference affiliation, how good are you? What they do is take your overall efficiency nationally and tell me who would win a football game when two teams go head-to-head. On a neutral site, ragdolled was the word that was used there. We talked about A&M, who would guard any player for A&M. BYU has a 56% chance to beat Texas A&M on a neutral site. Per the analytics, per the efficiency that BYU has put together this season, their defense, 16th against the rush, 8th against the pass, would completely shut down Texas A&M, who's behind them in both categories. Final projected score, 27-25. Is that a blowout for BYU? No, but what is it? A win, and not a blowout in the other direction for Texas A&M. That's just a bad take. How about South Carolina? Ragdolled was the word. Yeah. Analytically, I'm not going to hide this from you. South Carolina has a 54% chance on a neutral site to beat BYU. I heard ragdolled. Final score projection, 26-25 Gamecocks. Weird. BYU's offense would be able to run the football against South Carolina's defense. The passing game would struggle. The secondary of South Carolina is very good, but would South Carolina boat race them? No, especially because BYU's defense would once again shut down South Carolina's offense. Told you, BYU 16th against the rush, 8th against the drop back. That is efficiency ratings. South Carolina is 30-plus nationally in both throwing and running the football. Boat race, huh? How about this? How about BYU and Missouri? We talked about it. JD said any team that's ranked behind BYU in these rankings would probably beat BYU, and by 7 or more. BYU has a 68% chance of victory against Missouri. Final score projection, 28-21 Cougars. That's 7 points in our favor. Why? Because Missouri has been 44th in the country throwing the football. Their rushing offense is not as good as BYU's rushing defense from a grade standpoint. Again, these are efficiency numbers. There is not one efficiency category, offense, defense, passing, running, against the pass, against the run, that Missouri is better than BYU. Boat raced. How about this? BYU and Georgia. JD would think that BYU would get killed by Georgia, right? That's obvious. Final score projection, Georgia 27, BYU 25. Yep, that's weird. But yeah, Georgia won by a field goal. Less than. It's a boat race, a blowout. Wasn't even a fun game to watch, huh? And this is just, BYU's had an easier schedule. We can get there in a second, but that's not really, it's not all the time how efficiencies work. Like, this is taking a lot more into account than total yardage. BYU, LSU. LSU would beat the brakes off of BYU. JD just told me that. Final score, BYU 28, LSU 26. BYU wins. 56% chance of victory. Why? LSU fails to run the football against BYU's defense. LSU's passing attack is not as good as BYU's secondary from an efficiency standpoint. And LSU defensively, 96th in the country on third and fourth down success and 38th against the rush. BYU, who has the 14th best rushing offense in the nation, would run all over them. Boat race. Blowout. Ragdolled. Surely JD then thinks that BYU is better than Indiana still, right? Here's what he had to say, again, courtesy of On 3.
If you're a BYU fan, you're upset about what I just said about where you have BYU right now and saying, what does he say? Why is he upset with where BYU is at? If I want more respect from BYU, go do what Indiana's doing. And I get the game against Michigan leaves a little bit more to be desired. Would like to see, definitively beat Michigan when you have a chance to, quite frankly, with how that roster is struggling offensively right now. But still, I mean, I think the reason why Indiana is at 5 to me and not higher based on what they've done at this point in the year, I think we can now definitively say the committee is making these rankings with a little bit of context. Like in a vacuum, Indiana, heck, put them at 3. If it's solely about this year, I'm fine with putting Indiana at that 3 spot or that 4 spot.
BYU would get boat raced, but Indiana should be the third-ranked team in the country. JD, I ask you this. Again, I think JD is very talented and a good friend of mine, but I disagree with him here. JD, I ask you this. How many bowl teams has Indiana beat? Even I can count this high. 0. JD, let me ask you this question then. How many top 25 teams has Indiana faced this season? I can answer that for you again. It's pretty easy. It's 0. How many top 25s have they beaten? 0. Have they beaten every team in front of them? Do they deserve credit for beating every team in front of them? Yes. Their strength of schedule is terrible. Their strength of record is not as good as BYU's. They blew out Nebraska. Nebraska's not very good right now. How about Washington? Struggle with them, huh? Washington's not very good right now. What could BYU do differently? BYU could be Indiana, he says. What? And play a worse strength of schedule? Is that what we're looking for here? I'm confused by that narrative. BYU should have just done what Indiana was doing and win every game ahead of it. They did. Yeah, we'll blow out your games. BYU probably would if they were playing Michigan State, porous Michigan, bad Nebraska, dilapidated Washington, Northwestern, and Charlotte. Instead, they're playing SMU and Kansas State. And the number 8 defense in the country, Utah, in a rivalry game on the road, which Indiana just seems to only play home games. Angels in the outfield style. That's the national narrative, and it's incorrect. Coming up, let's beat the books on Locked On Big 12. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our Beat the Book segment is always brought to you by FanDuel, my favorite sportsbook in America. It is America's #1 sportsbook, so why wouldn't it be my favorite? You can tackle all the NFL and college action with FanDuel. And if you bet $5 right now and you hit it, you get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and in college football all in one place. Check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. FanDuel.com. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more. Do it with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. You visit FanDuel.com today and you say, hey, I think BYU is going to win by more than 3 against Kansas. And FanDuel will say, okay, sweet. We'll let you put money on that. And you can put money on that. FanDuel.com. If you're not going there, you're missing out. Visit FanDuel, download the Sportsbook app, FanDuel, today. It's time to beat the books this week with our best bets across the Big 12. I like to make you money, and I will tell you all of these picks come from efficiency ratings thanks to our friends at College Football Insiders. They are the ones that told me that BYU in a head-to-head matchup against Texas A&M would win, and that BYU in a head-to-head matchup against LSU would win. And they've been pretty spot on all season long because they use efficiencies, not total defense, not total offense, but instead actual grades to give us our picks. And this week, we will start it hot. BYU minus 3.5 against Kansas is one of the Big 12 locks of the week this week. And let me tell you why. Kansas is playing very good football. Kansas is a team possessed right now because they want to go to a bowl game. They want to salvage their season. And that's a fun storyline. The Jayhawks have a fun storyline. The offense is finally playing better. Here's the problem. BYU's offense was bottled up against Utah. They are ready for a night home game, Vampire Cougs, to explode, and they're going to play a Kansas defense that is 66th against the rush. BYU, 14th in the country running the football. Kansas is 61st against the pass. BYU, 29th in the country throwing the football. And Kansas is 105th defensively in America on 3rd and 4th down success. That is not very good. If you ask the analytics, the numbers that are, by the way, smarter than me and smarter than you, BYU wins this game 36-23, an 84% chance of victory. 36-23, that's 13 points. I only need BYU to win by 3.5. Give me the Cougars to cover against Kansas, a night game at home. Don't forget about what we know about BYU. They win night games at home, and they usually do it at a very high level. I'm taking the Vampire Cougs by 3 against Kansas, which the Kansas offense will still probably put up 24 points, which is a very good amount of points against a very good BYU defense. Despite BYU's defense grading so much better than the Kansas offense, I get it. Kansas is hot. I'm taking BYU here. Colorado, minus 10 against Utah. Let's sit on this one for a second. Preseason, would you have ever thought this would be the case? That Colorado and Deion Sanders could go not just toe-to-toe with Utah, but blow Utah out of the water. Let's pull up these analytics, because I know you don't like hearing my interjections about these teams. You want to know what the numbers say, and they say that BYU will blow out Kansas, Colorado will blow out Utah, and the rest of these picks from West Virginia to Houston are all backed by the numbers. And these numbers, and I'm reading here on this little board, say that Colorado has an 85% chance of victory when they play Utah this week. That is how you say good in my industry. And that Utah will score 19 points to Colorado's 32.5, which is impossible to score 32.5. So Colorado will put you at 33. What is this little jobber doing right here? I'll plug this in. So the reason why is Utah's offense has been putrid. 97th running the football. Light. 104th against, or 104th throwing the football, I should say, and 120th on 3rd and 4th down. Colorado's defense has been much improved, especially against the pass. And even on 3rd and 4th down, they're significantly better than Utah. Give me Colorado in this game at home, especially. I do believe, after hearing from Mark Harlan, who went into the locker room and was so upset with how disparaged his athletes were, that he said the things that he said on that podium. That's what caused him to go on his outburst, tirade, whatever, was the players in the locker room being big sad. So give me this week a big Colorado victory over Utah. West Virginia +1 against Baylor. I'm going to take the West Virginia money line this week. If you're watching on YouTube, I have like a headlight that turns on, right? So you can see me, and it doesn't work anymore. If you're listening on audio, I'm sure I hopefully still sound good. Give me West Virginia on the money line here. Why? The analytics kind of back this one up. West Virginia has never lost to Baylor at home, meaning Baylor has never won at West Virginia. Baylor's offense is pretty bad running the football analytically, 72nd in the country. West Virginia is pretty good defending the run, 32nd in the nation. Baylor can throw. Sawyer Robertson can throw. This game is projected at 31-31, West Virginia to win. But if you really break it down, West Virginia has a 52% chance of victory. Their passing defense has been bad. Baylor's passing defense has been bad. West Virginia is the 7th best passing offense in the nation. West Virginia is pretty bad defensively on 3rd and 4th down success rate. The one thing that really does bode well for West Virginia is that home game, home atmosphere against a Baylor team that seems to just fall apart entirely in Morgantown. Give me West Virginia to beat Baylor this week in a home game that would I take their money line? I don't feel bad about it. It's two teams playing somehow their best football right now. And after West Virginia's win last week, from Nico Markiol to Garrett Green, give me whoever. I think the Mountaineers find a way to pull it out. And again, the computer backs it up by 1 point, effectively 1 point, 0.7, but that rounds up. Houston at Arizona. I'm going to take Houston plus 2.5, but I'm also just going to go with the Houston money line. They will win this game. Houston will win at Arizona. That is putting my foot down. They're projected to win by 2.5 points, round up to 3. If you ask the analytics, neither team is very good at anything except for Houston's defense. Arizona's offense even doesn't grade very well. Houston's defense grades pretty well, especially against the pass. Grades decently against the run, and it's very solid. This is where the game will be decided, is Arizona will not be able to stay on the field on 3rd and 4th down. Houston has a 42nd best defense in the country on 3rd and 4th down. Arizona's offense is 101st in the nation on late downs. Houston's offense, bad. Arizona's defense, bad. Like, movable object meets stoppable force in this game. Still going to side with Houston. They have a 58% chance to win here. Final score projection is 26-24. So give me the Cougars. I think they win. Arizona's not playing well at all. Houston is playing very good football as they just beat Kansas State. And I don't trust Arizona. Sorry, Arizona fans. Our last best bet of this week. Kansas State, Arizona State meet in Manhattan. I'm going to go Arizona State plus 8.5. 25 of the 50 games in the Big 12 this season have been decided by one score. The computer projects that this game will also be decided by one score. That is one of the biggest reasons that I'm going to go with Kansas State not to cover. I think Arizona State, especially with the return of Cam Scadaboo, that light came on for a second. Went back. Especially with the return of Cam Scadaboo, will be in a good position. I will take Kansas State to win. They have a 69% chance of victory. Arizona State a 31% chance. Kansas State 37, Arizona State 32, I should say. Arizona State 25 is the projected score. That covers 8.5. Arizona State offensively has been very good running the football, 21st in the country, 32nd throwing the football. Kansas State 24th against the rush, 34th against the pass, so they grade more poorly than Arizona State defensively than Arizona State does on offense. I think that goes to show a bit on Saturday, and Arizona State ultimately loses, but they keep it close because that's what we do in the Big 12. Those are the best bets this week to help you beat the books. Those are all brought to you by FanDuel as well. I got to fix this light. I don't even know what's going on. It's like a battery-powered thing. Do I charge it? You don't know. I'm just talking out loud at this point. Okay. This has been and always will be. Come back tomorrow. I'll give you the picks for every game in the Big 12, most likely. Go Baylor softball. This has been and always will be. Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Adios, grande.